Okay, hi, I'm Casey. This is I Don't Know What I'm Doing, because I don't know what I'm doing, but today we're going to talk about my most surprising books of 2022. These are in no particular order, and most of these I don't have physical copies for because I did the audiobook or a library copy of the book. So the first one I want to talk about is Through by Ellen Baxter. This is one of the few that I do have a physical copy of. By the way, I'm not giving synopses for any of these. If you're interested in them, these should all be on Goodreads and you can check them out there. This is pure B movie nonsense, and I loved every second of it. I saw this somewhere, probably Goodreads, and I went, that sounds so stupid, I want to read it. Then I bought the book on Thrift Books, and it's been sitting on my shelves for a while because I haven't been able to convince myself that it's time. And finally this year, I, for some reason, wanted to add another book at the end of the month, and I grabbed this. And this was everything to me. I loved this so much. It's over the top, it's nonsense, it's violence and gore, and it's creature horror, and it's just literally like a fucking kangaroo that shoots lasers out of its eyes. It's nonsense, but it still has some messages in there. And I thought it was fun, and I really wanted something fun at the time, and this really delivered. The next book on this list is The Violence by Delilah S. Dawson. This, again, was just another one that had a lot of fun to it. I wasn't expecting it to, like, first of all, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it. I thought this was going to be a little bit more thrillery, a little suspenseful, but it really was just a lot of social commentary, and it had this unexpected, like, performance element to it that I really loved. I thought it was fun and silly, but it also had a lot to say. I really loved everything about this. It wasn't like an all-time favorite for me, but it really was something that I wanted to keep coming back to, and I kept coming back to. And I don't always find that I have that drive with an audiobook. Sometimes with an audiobook, I'm enjoying it and I'm having a good time, and maybe I'll even give it 5 stars, but I'm not necessarily engaged, and I don't necessarily find myself, like, driven to find excuses to listen to it. And this one I did. I just thought it was fun and creepy and like, not really spooky, but it was really, it had such a driving plot, and I really loved the characters in this as well, which is always just such a bonus for me. And so yeah, this one really surprised me. The next one on this list is The Cherry Robbers by Sarai Walker. This and The Violence I read because they were on the Goodreads Best of Horror for 2022, and I was trying to get in as many of those as quickly as I could, and I had both audiobooks available. This one was just immaculate, beautiful character work. I loved all of the sisters and the mother and their relationships with each other. This was just creepy and unsettling, and it was gothic, but it was also family trauma and generational trauma, and just this beautiful backdrop with the wedding cake, which is the house they all live in. This was another one that I just kept finding excuses for. Like, I would be, you know, in the middle of the day, and I'd be like, oh, I should go wrap some presents so I could listen to like 45 minutes of this book. And I just kept coming back to it, and I kept wanting to find out where it was going and what was going to happen. And it was just slow burn, and it was beautiful, and I wasn't expecting it, and I really loved it. Okay, the next one I have on this list is Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valente. And this was one I read, again, Goodreads Best of Horror, but for 2021. And I was really surprised by how much I loved this. I read it in one sitting, and it's a short little novella, and it was one that really sucked me in, and I wasn't expecting, I don't want to call it a twist, but I wasn't expecting the reveal. I was just so blown away, and I should have expected it, but I was just so pulled into the story and the characters and what was going on, and I was so invested in trying to figure out what was happening with the home that I wasn't paying attention to all the hints that the author put in for what was actually going on. It was great. I loved it. I think about this one all the time, and I was so surprised by how much I loved it. The next one we have is Elegy for the Undead by Matthew Vesely. This is another short novella that I got as an audiobook, and I listened to it, I think, all in one day, and I fucking cried. I cried. I have not been like a big crybaby with my books this year, and this one really got to me. I was not expecting it to tug at my heartstrings the way it did, to talk about relationships with such candor, especially when it's set in a zombie apocalypse. It's truly a story of these two men just falling in love and finding their relationship together and finding the ways that they work together, and all the things that happen in relationships that I think sometimes get left out of fiction. Fiction often wants to make it either really, you know, really rocky, or kind of this this pure, beautiful love story. But this was very real, and I loved that about it. It had very, you know, blatant talks about sex and relationship struggles and disappointments in each other, and just sometimes how it can be very difficult to connect to another person in that deep, intimate way. And I thought it talked about it beautifully. I really loved this one. Next on this list is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This is one that I had no expectations for, and I was so blown away. Again, shocker, Casey loves characters. Casey loves to connect to a character. I love books that are really in one character's head, almost to like the detriment of the narrative. And this really worked for me, because we were truly in this woman's head, and we got to see the world through her lens. And we got to see her struggle to assimilate to a world that doesn't really cater to her, and her finding the ways to connect to people in the way that she finds meaningful, and the ways that, you know, she makes her world comfortable, and how disruptive it can be when people place their own expectations on you, and like what that means in Japan and in Japanese culture for someone who has kind of hit the peak of what they want and feels content and happy. And I really loved it. I thought it was really beautiful. It's another really short book, and I loved it so much. And I was really surprised because I didn't really know what to expect from it. The next book on this list is one I have a physical copy of, and it's the only graphic novel on this list, and it is The Night Eaters by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. Sana Takeda, I believe, one of those. And this is book one. It's called She Eats the Night. I won this in a Goodreads giveaway, and I honestly didn't even remember entering the giveaway, and this arrived really quickly, and I think I read it within a week of it coming to my house, and I didn't know what to expect. The artwork is incredible. The story, while creepy and weird and a little gross at times, is also so rooted in family dynamics and in the ways in which we connect with our parents and their expectations, and the ways that they try to protect us can sometimes, you know, backfire. This is also, you know, a story of immigrant parents trying to do better for their kids. And I'm seeing that the sun is starting to do weird things, and it is starting to make the lighting in here really weird, so I'm so sorry about that. We're almost done, so we'll see how quickly we get through. But this was another one that I found myself almost moved to tears by the end of it. And this is just volume one, and I am really excited to continue on in this series and to see where this goes. The next book on this list is The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. I grabbed this one from the library. I reserved a copy of the physical book and the ebook, not the ebook, the audiobook, because I'd heard that both were really good. This is just really quickly, this is the only one I'm going to give a brief synopsis for. It's a memoir that someone had, that one of the people featured in the memoir has come in and annotated along with it and critiques the author's writing and their memory of things. And it was a really fascinating read. And again, it just, the characters, Art Barbara and Mercy tore at my heartstrings so much. It was another one where I found myself almost moved to tears by the end of it. I thought the ending was, it was also one of those books where I wasn't sure how it was going to end. We had gone through the full journey with Art and Mercy, and I didn't know how it was going to all kind of come together at the end. Not necessarily how it was going to wrap up, but how everything was going to connect. And I think that Paul Tremblay did such a beautiful job of giving both of these characters a voice at the end. And I'm like even starting to tear up thinking about it now. And I've never read anything by Paul Tremblay before. I know this is very different for him, but I absolutely adored this one so much. The next one on this list is Coyote Songs by Gabino Iglesias. I had no idea what to expect with this one. I grabbed this from my library because it was suggested to me by one of my favorite book talkers. Well, not to me directly, but in one of her videos. And holy shit, this was incredible. I was so surprised by everything in this book. I think it takes a special author to take what seem like disconnected stories and weave them all into one narrative. And there were times where I was so shocked by the violence and the supernatural elements that were in here. It would just pull me in every story, every time. And I really loved it. I thought it was really incredible. And I want to read more from this author. I read The Devil Takes You Home later this year as well, which I also thought was really good. And I cannot wait to read everything that this author writes from here on out. Okay, and the last book on this list, the most surprising book I read this year. I actually read, I want to say it was today, the 3rd. I read it on the 31st of 2022, or the 30th. It was one of those. And it is The Past is Red by Catherynne M. Valente. You will notice she is here twice. Both of her books shocked me every time. I hate the cover for The Past is Red, by the way. I think it's not for me. It's not for me. That's where I'm going to leave it. Because we're not talking about the cover, we're talking about the contents. I don't know that I've ever read something so witty and so funny and so sweet and wholesome and heartbreaking all at the same time. I saw a review of this book that said one of their favorite things was that Tetley is optimistic without being naive, because that's often paired together. And she's optimistic while being fully realistic about her situation. And it's so true. It's so true. That is Tetley to her core. And it was beautiful. And I cried while reading this, and I finished the audiobook and I immediately told my husband and his parents about it, and I almost coerced my beautiful, wonderful husband into listening to the audiobook that same night, and he did, and we were both so blown away by it, and it was incredible. It was incredible. It was everything. It's one of my favorite books of this year, and I think it has potential to be one of my favorite books of all time. It was everything. It was amazing, and I am so glad that I got over how much I disliked the cover to give this book a full opportunity to blow my socks off. Okay, that was it. Those are my most surprising books of 2022. If you feel like it, tell me about some of your surprising reads from this past year, or maybe ever, in the comments. I would love to hear it. Or if you've read any of the books that I mentioned, you have your own opinions that you want to share, please do that down below. Anyways, I will see you later, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye. Affles.